Hello guys, this is the American developer here. It has been quite some time since I've produced a video. Actually since February, kind of crazy, right? But I've actually decided to check my YouTube channel from time to time, and I've noticed there are quite a bit of views and people making requests. And one of these requests happens to be how can we handle pop-ups or alert pop-ups when using Selenium, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So in prep, what you'll need to do is have Python installed. I'm actually going to use version 3.6 today, so the syntax may be a little different from my other videos that are using more of the 2 series. The second thing we need to get is the Chrome driver, which I do have another video that talks about step-by-step of how to do that, and I can include that link in this video. So once you have Python installed and Chrome driver set up, make sure to put this Chrome driver wherever your Python script is going to run. So now let's go to my workstation, which is on my desktop, and I created a folder called add example, and here's Chrome driver. And I'm going to go ahead and get my Sublime text set up. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to save it as, let's put that here, pop-up approach. That's what I'll call it. And of course add the file extension .py at the end. So now we have our file, and of course we start off with our libraries that we want to import, such as import time, because we are going to do some implicit checks within this test, more like a workflow task, and also system, so we can do some error handling, which will be included in this video, and also of course Selenium, we want to import that. So let's go ahead and set up our main. Now from here we are going to, let me zoom in for a little bit here. From here we're going to call our class, which we need to define first, which I will call it pop-up resolve example. So I'll go ahead and define a variable, call it Selenium workflow, and I'll have it equal to pop-up resolve example. So now this will communicate with this class, so then we can begin this awesome test that we're going to set up here. Of course we gotta set up our constructor with init and have the parameter of self. That's equivalent to this on like JavaScript languages or PHP, you name it. It's equivalent to this in Python. And we want to call self driver, and what I'm going to do here is call up the function setup. This is mainly for organizational reasons. So over here we define our setup function with the self parameter, and then we return webdriver.chrome, and then have chromedriver.exe. Now the reason why I have it set up this way is because let's say you want to move your Chrome driver in a different directory, then you can define all those settings here, and then you can return the WebDriver or the variable that you define that has all those settings set up with it. So mainly this is for cleaning, to keep our code clean. We love clean code. And I'll go ahead and add some comments here, because this, I do call this a helper function. We're going to actually create some of these to make our code clean, so we don't reuse or we don't repeat the same code throughout our class here. So you can add additional Chrome driver settings before return statement. So next will be our self. Let's do that later, actually. It would make more sense if I did it in some sort of a order. All right. So let's start off with our first task. And what this task is going to be is we are going to go to this website, which happens to be mcdonalds.com. And you can see here we have a model that popped up. Now when you run your Selenium test, you can try to input a text or click a submit button, but this model will be in your way. So in order to bypass this, you have to actually click the X button, or if sometimes there's a cancel button depending on the model that you interact with. Mainly you have to get to know the environment that you're automating is what I'm trying to say. So let's go ahead and define that task, which I will call popup resolve example 1. You can name it whatever you want. And that's going to have a parameter of self. And as you can tell, there are zip codes that are going to be involved with this automating process. So that means I need to create another helper function to return all those zip codes. Once again, to keep it clean. And I will call that function grab zip code. And here's just a list of zip codes that we can enter. So let me go ahead and do a speed up moment here. I'll get back to you in just a moment. So now you see that the zip codes are all typed in. These will be the zip codes that we will eventually loop through. So when we begin this task, we want to actually grab those zip codes. So I'm going to define a variable called zip codes, and then it's going to call grab zip code. So now that zip code can be used, this zip codes variable can be used throughout this functional task that I created. Now I'm going to use some try and catch statements for this, and I'll explain why I'm going through this in just a moment, but I'll type this up because what we need to do is make sure we are actually connecting to the website and we are catching it, so if a failure occurs we can actually see if our browser is already connected to the website or not, and that's what I'm going to do first. Make sure that I am actually connected to the McDonald's website. And I'm actually going to check for in the current URL of the Selenium driver. So if mcdonalds.com is in self-driver current URL, and this will return a true or false when checking for this. Now, if this is true, then we want to go to our next step, which is our next helper function. Let me go ahead and add the comments for grab code, so then you have something to refer to as well. One moment here. Utilize specifically by test1 to grab zip codes. Alright, so here's another helper function which is called clearPopups. Now this is probably an awesome helper function to build for most of these pop-up annoying situations, because you may run into a website that not only shows pop-ups or models, it may pop up an additional newsletter model or something after you search enough times. So the purpose of this function is to actually go through all of those instances and ensure that no pop-ups are there. So that's why I'm creating this helper function. Helper function example 3. List of potential, this is how I'm going to comment it, ways to clear up a pop-up. Feel free to add more. And you know, this video may not solve every pop-up situation you may see, because it could be a pop-up that's within an iframe. I mean, there's all countless ways of pop-ups occurring, and there are multiple solutions to it. And I can actually add those to the description in this video. Just leave me a comment if you do run into problems like that. And this is my trick to go through every potential pop-up clear. So here we go. So first you do a try and then do whatever action it is. So you find the element by XPath. Usually when I do XPath, there's no other attribute on that element like a like ID or name. If you don't have any of those, then you have to resolve to XPath. And how do you grab an XPath? You actually go here. So if you're on Google Chrome, you go to the website and you see this model, just simply right click and expect element, and then you can see that here there's the highlighted element with the light bluish color. And what you do is go to over to the right hand side here, right click, copy XPath, and then you just paste that right here. When all else fails, just use the XPath or CSS selector. So then that's the first way we're going to clear the pop-up here, is find element by XPath, and we're going to click that model so we can clear it up. And then, hey, most of the time that model may not be there, so that's why we're going to do a try and accept, and we're going to do this pass. So then this doesn't stop the entire test, it will just continue through as is. And here are some other examples. This is more of a pop-up alert example of how we can deal with that. So we can run all of these at the same time and don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about failing the entire script, because we have it captured with the try and catch equivalent in Python. And then with this is how this is the standard for clicking confirm or exiting out of one of those pop-up alerts. Now there could be additional ways of doing it, and the only thing you have to do really is continue this trend of a try and accept and pass. If you do those over and over again with the different try specific commands, you'll catch whatever pop-up occurs. So that's what I recommend doing. And that has actually been helpful for me when I've done automation for my previous company. Actually, I've had to do that with the automating. I just did a list of try and catches and just caught whatever popped up. Worked magic for me. So now we are actually going to call that clearPopups function. So we're checking here to see if we are actually on the McDonald's website already or not. If not, then we are going to do else, and we are going to do self.driver.get, which will load up the URL address, which in this case is this. Very long. Maybe I'll include that in the description so you don't have to manually type that. That's quite a bit of text there. Alright, so next, this may seem redundant, maybe there's a better way of typing this, but since this will go through without any errors occurring, no worries about it. And we can go ahead and add return to it if you want. I don't think you really have to, but I'm going to add a return in there anyways. So we got 2 chances of clearing pop-ups. So we should be fine when it comes to any pop-ups that occur on a website you want to automate. Now next is the actual process of looping through the zip codes. And let's go ahead and add some comments here as well, because it's always good to document. Task example, removing model pop-up on McDonald's website. Alright, let's start off with our for loop. I'm just going to do a I in range type loop. Then let's go to the length of zip codes, which we defined up above here, which we grabbed all the zip codes, and yes, it is an array, so we can actually loop through that. And now here we are going to do a sleep, and because I like keeping my code clean for the most part, I am going to add another variable in my constructor, which is called adjust timeout, and I'm going to set that to 3. Now I can set this throughout the entire class, and if I need to set it to 2 or 1, it would be the average timeout that I set. So I don't have to go to every time sleep and change the number for this implicit type testing. Alright, so now what we are going to do is actually type into this input field and click submit over and over again. So how to do that, we are going to call the self driver and define element by name, and then we're going to look for search text, which is the name of this. As you can see here, it won't let me zoom. Oh, there we go. It does zoom in. Way more than expected. But you can see here, search text is the name attribute of this field. So that is what I'm going to call. And I'm going to clear it. And the reason being is because I'm looping through it. What happens with Selenium is if there's already text there, it will just add text to the end of the already existing zip code. So for that reason, we want to clear it. Now this won't fail the test, so we don't have to worry about that. So once we clear it, we are going to find element again by that name of search text, and we are going to send keys of zip codes with the index of I, which is represented here in the I here, and it's looping through zip codes. Now we are going to click our submit button, find element, and this time I had to do another XPath because these fields are really strange, probably Angular most likely. So now we see here, there's our submit button. We want to right click, and we are going to copy the XPath again because this is much faster than going through nightmares of manually locating the button through find elements by class. So this is much quicker for me. Now in the long run, you probably want to find a more permanent solution because they could change the website, and for example this div could be located somewhere else, throwing this XPath completely useless. So I would recommend finding a more permanent solution than this, but this is a quick, easy solution, and we are going to click that button through this click function. Alright, So once that's clicked, we do our time sleep with the self adjust timeout again. And then what we're trying to do here is actually find out how many McDonald's stores are located in a specific zip code. And you can see there's 11 McDonald's near you at this 90210 zip code address. So how do we extract it? This is how we extract it. So let's set our amount of stores equal to self.driver find element by XPath again, because this website's a little complicated when it comes to finding all of these values. So once again, we're going to copy the XPath. And there's the main content. All right. So that is how we actually extract the element itself. Now we are actually going to print out the text into the console. And you can later send this to your monitoring tool or save it to your database. Whatever you want to do with it is, be my guest. Do whatever you want. And then this will, so the dot text is what this is represented by here. Now, here's some magical stuff here. The exception part, which will allow us to, what I'm aiming to do with this exception is to be able to catch it, any errors, and be able to rerun the task. And you'll see as I type it out what's going on. Now, for those who are still using Python 2, the 2 series, this may not work for you. Since I'm using 3.6 version, I have to use base exception to catch any general error message. I'll probably include the 2 series in the description of the video. Just remind me. Now let's give a simple message like task failing and print out the actual exception message. Now what happens here is if we catch it, this thing's going to run forever. We want to give it a limit amount of times that this test can fail. So we don't want to have this breaker command prompt. So the next thing we will need to do is add this variable to our constructor, which is counts till failure, which right now it's currently 0. We are going to add that right here. We're going to add 1 to it, and we are going to give it a total of 5 times. If it fails 5 times, let's go ahead and give a little documenting here. So type whatever message you want to send to your monitoring tools. Print task is exiting. Too many failures. We are going to use our sys library to actually exit, to purposely fail it. So we are manually failing it. But if it hasn't failed 5 times, we are going to rerun the test. All right, we are going to test this. Let's see how this runs. Oh, one more thing. Of course, we need to actually tear down. We need to make sure our Chrome driver closes properly. So that's part of teardown. Let's do self.driver.close. So let's run that. Selenium workflow. So this, once again, this variable will call our class, and we will run this function here. And then once that is done, do a teardown. All right, let's test our first task here. Let's see how this runs. I already have it opened up here. I wanted to make sure it worked. Now, obviously here on your command prompt, just go to where your script is located. Once again, make sure your Chrome driver is right next to your Python script in this code if you want to use this code. And we run pop-up approach. And you can see that I already closed the model pop-up. And I ran whatever commands that I placed within clearPopup function. So all of that's been handled properly as far as I'm concerned. Now I noticed there's some little weird problem with Python 3.6 on your command prompt. I have to press enter to do anything on here. It is strange. Maybe that's just a bug. I am using more of the newer stuff on Python, so hopefully this bug gets resolved soon. Maybe with the 2 series this will be running just fine, but if you're running a later version you might have to press enter manually to get through this. Pretty annoying bug. So I don't recommend 3.6 Python right now until they fix this, because automating it may be doing the same thing and you have to press the stupid enter button to complete it. But as you can see that it's copying the messages here and outputting it here. So if you're creating some app where you're doing a third-party version of all the McDonald's location, there you go. That's how you can scrape that sort of data. So that's how that works when it comes to models. I was hoping to actually use get a alert pop-up to occur on the McDonald's website, but it didn't. So for this reason I'm going to do this example here of actually manually generating it, which I will do here with example 2. Alright, so I'm going to call it pop-up example 2, and that's going to pass in the self as well. And I'm going to do some good documenting. Task is example removing generated alert pop-up on Google website. Yes. That sums up what I'm going to do with this task, which is go to Google's website, run a JavaScript, some JavaScript code, create an alert, and then clear it. So here we go. Now I'm going to apply everything that I talked about here and place it directly here. So let's do a try. If I'm going to check for the Google website. If google.com in self.driver current URL. Once again, if it's a true or false, do the same process as up here. Self.clear popups. Nope, that tab too far. Then else, we want to get the URL. Now this definitely has a 100% chance of failing the first time because we haven't called it. But we can probably design that better someday. Now once again we are going to do our time sleep and use our main timeout variable that's called in our constructor. And then next what we will do is call our alert. Actually, what am I doing here? This would be cleaner actually. Let's do this. Pass. Let's try that out. And then we'll do a clear pop-ups here. So then it will go through these to clear up the pop-up. That looks better to me. And then this will give me some confirmation that it has been removed. Successfully closed. Pop-up alert. Exclamation point. Got to make sure to do that. And then do a time.sleep just to see that you have removed the pop-up. And you can actually copy this. It's going to be the same thing for the accept statement. Just remember to place it to 2 instead of 1. Yep, that looks correct to me. Now this one may fail, but I'll test it anyways to see how it works. So let's test number 2. It didn't even call the alert. Oh, that's because I need to create my alert. Of course. And how you do that in Selenium is call your driver object and then call the execute script function, which goes like this. Some simple JavaScript here. Let's do a hey, close it up, and we are going to call this again. So then we can give the pop-up some time to clear it up. All right, let's try that again. There we go. So we got our pop-up, and now we should clear it. And that did what it's supposed to do. Awesome. Now the last thing we're going to do, we are going to run both of them at the same time. Now, you may be thinking, hey, what if it's already failed a couple of times? This could be failing because this already has been adding up to 5. Well, we have a solution for that, and that is actually another helper function, which I'll write up real quick. And all it is I'm going to call it reset counts till failure. And I will reset the value to 0. I'm going to copy this just in case. Okay. And I'm going to call this once the first task is done. So then example 2 will have all 5 potential failures to account for. Now let's run this as a whole test. So if you followed through thoroughly and listened to me, you should have this as your result. So enjoy. Hope this is what you're looking for when it comes to fixing modals and alert pop-ups. Of course, I got my bug with Python. There we go. So 11 McDonald's stores there. Got 9 at that zip code. I probably could output the zip code that I'm searching for with that as well. Just some ideas if you're looking to scrape some of that data. It's 30 McDonald's all right there because it's Manhattan. They have a lot of Mickey D's out there. It's got 5 McDonald's there. 5 as well there. Now, of course, there are ways to improve this, but this is the bare minimum. And you can see here, there's the alert, and I removed it, and now it's closing. Okay, so that is one approach to removing these pop-ups. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, of course, please leave them as a comment and feel free to subscribe. And thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.